Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this speech this morning around compliance learning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jane Cowan, and I am UK Managing Director of IMC. I have more than 20 years' experience of deploying IT solutions in a number of countries. I specialise in HR and learning transformations, and I have worked in a number of industry verticals, in particular financial services, professional services, resourcing and mining. Before we start, just a piece about my firm, IMC. We provide a full suite of talent, learning and new media services. In particular, in the learning arena, we have firstly our learning management solution, CLIX, which provides the capability for you to manage all your learning offerings and monitor and control progress of your employees in their training. Secondly, we have our authoring suite, which provides you the capability to provide web-based training for using any types of media, which you can then obviously deploy to your staff at will. Should you not wish to do that, we also provide new bespoke content creation for you. In addition, we also have our business process guidance solution, which enables you to provide learning in real time to your staff. So, for example, should you roll out a new system, you may want to support your staff by providing them access to the live context solution, which will give them pieces of training as they actually execute transactions. And finally, given that we have implemented so many learning solutions successfully, we provide consulting services which provide and let you use our insights to help you formulate your own learning strategies or deploy your learning solutions. So that's me. So obviously the discussion this morning is around compliance learning. And IMC has high pedigree in the compliance field. Last year, we were awarded the Brandon Hall Silver Award for our project with Mobilar Insurance. This was a rollout of an anti-money laundering program. Secondly, many of our clients choose our CLIX learning platform because of our competency in the compliance field. Often it's seen as a USP for our services. Thirdly, we have produced a compliance white paper, and that is available at our stand 2, so should you wish to get hold of that, please come and visit us after this presentation, or it is also available on our website. Fourthly, from a compliance perspective, we have also produced much compliance content for many different firms around the world, and this varies from financial services type compliance, health and safety, data privacy. We have a whole raft of examples that we could show you. So that's the basic introduction. All of you, whenever you turn on your TV set, read the papers, see compliance is very, very much in the headlines today. Sadly, it tends to be more on people not complying rather than complying. However, any of you involved in rolling out compliance know just how challenging it can be. There is a raft of new legislation almost on a sort of yearly basis that we need to actually execute and deploy. The compliance basically can be defined as the capability of your business to execute all its business processes and actually comply with legal and statutory legislation. And although that sounds quite simple to say, in practice that is really very much a challenge many organisations are facing at this time. Almost on a yearly basis, there is new legislation that's coming out. So where's the legislation coming from? Obviously, there's a raft of, as businesses become more global, there are more international laws that need to be adhered to, regional and local laws, country laws, industry standards. All of these are things which we as businesses need to adhere to preserve our integrity. On top of that, the diversity and the scope of the topics that are covered by compliance can also be very challenging for people. So, for example, typically there are things such as the financial regulations, such as antitrust laws, anti-money laundering. There is health and safety regulations that need to be complied with, such as food hygiene, things such as equal rights, data privacy. All of these things we need to comply with in our business lives. On top of that, we have the business reality whereby, although people just have to do their compliance training, there are many other business imperatives as well. And therefore, it is very, very critical that we target compliance training appropriately. Couple with that, the capability to actually deploy compliance training can be very challenging. And the reasons for this is because typically we have very much pressure on back-end budgets, and therefore typically a handful of staff, if you're lucky, are tasked with actually controlling a compliance deployment. Therefore, it is very key that automation is at the heart of everything that you do. Sorry, the slides are out of sync. So it is very key that you have a learning management solution. So let's start from the beginning. In order to deploy compliance, typically most firms choose a raft of mandatory training measures to ensure that employees are compliant. It is often difficult to deploy these because of cost constraints and of lack of automation. So therefore, in order for you to deploy your mandatory training, the most important thing is A, first of all, having a learning management system that can complete that automation. B, to be able to, sorry, I'm just lost. B, to be able to have repeatable processes which are transparent, visible, repeatable and scalable. And finally, sorry. Next slide. Sorry, just move to the next slide. Okay, so what have we found is, what processes have we found work for us? Within CLIX, there are 4 processes which really enable people to drive their compliance programs. The first is nomination. This enables you to define your target groups so that you are able to deploy training to the people in bite-sized chunks, essentially. The second is the capability to actually track individuals and to make sure that they are actually doing their training. The third is the capability to chase people and to make sure that if they aren't doing their training, it can be escalated as appropriate. And finally, we have a reporting capability which enables individuals it enables the firm to A, produce reports which are available for the auditors so that they can see that compliance has been adhered to properly, and secondly enables senior management to get full visibility of any reports that have full visibility of all the training that has been participated in. On top of that, our solution has a full logging capability. So therefore, if there are any changes made to compliance courses or to the target groups, this can be all logged and tracked, and therefore we have full traceability of actions for people who are taking compliance training. Now I'm going to illustrate the speech today with our two reference clients, or two example reference clients for this particular piece. First of all, I'm going to talk about Mobilar Insurance. Their particular challenge was that prior to implementing the CLIX solution, they found difficulty in providing the appropriate level of documentation to their authorities and to their auditors, and therefore they needed to sort of up their game in the capability to track any of the compliance learning. Secondly, is a Swiss financial institution, and we help them, they're a very famous Swiss financial institution, we help them deploy cross-border training for banking, cross-border banking training, which any of you know anything about cross-border banking know how complicated that particular piece can be, and CLIX was able to successfully deploy that. So I'm going to move on to the first process in more detail, nomination. Now, I don't know about you, but my personal experience with compliance training has been very much a sheep dip approach. Typically, at the start of any year, in previous jobs that I've had, I've been chucked a whole raft of compliance training courses that I must actually perform. And typically the deadline all seems to be actually on the same day. And typically I found myself in hotel rooms late at night the week before the actual deadline, struggling to actually complete the compliance training on time. Now clearly organisations today should strive for a more sophisticated way of deploying compliance training than just barely putting people through everything. And the way we address that in the CLIX solution is very much that we enable very sophisticated target groups to be defined. So we are able to basically define target groups on personal attributes, organisational attributes, previous history with the training, and therefore we can create very, very niche pieces of targeting for the training itself. On top of that, we are also able to include or exclude people. So, for example, if we feel that it's inappropriate for people on long-term leave, such as maternity leave, to take a piece of training, this group can be actively taken out of any piece of training. Furthermore, we have the capability to recertify people. So typically pieces of compliance training need to be renewed on typically an annual basis or a biannual basis. So the process that we have in our solution is very much create your target groups. People will automatically be assigned to the target groups using the solution. Secondly, once the target groups are in place, people will be automatically booked onto courses. So again, very much saving the manual labour on this particular piece. Now, in our example customers, for example, in Mobilar, they decided to create 24 different target groups for their anti-money laundering rollout. And their strategy was very much for those people who needed to take the full training, that would be defined to them. And for those that had taken anti-money laundering training before, typically they would be only targeted to take only modules which were new or complete a refresher piece. Our Swiss financial institution, it's used organisational attributes. Obviously it's a global organisation, so location was exceedingly important in this case. They had a dependency on what your job role was, to depending upon what the amount of training that you needed for cross-border banking. So again, by skillful use of the various attributes within the solution, they were able to target training appropriately. So that's our nomination process. Sorry, slides keep getting out of sync. Okay, the next process that we're going to look at is tracking. Now, tracking is critical to any piece of compliance learning. It is fundamental that at any time people can see the status of the training they are participating in. And increasingly, we are asking our employees to be more responsible for their own training and taking care of their own careers. And therefore, we need to give them the capability so that they can actually see where they stand with any given piece of training at any time. Using our CLIX platform, they are able to log into the solution and see at a glance the status with any training. We can put mandatory training in a specific place on the user interface, so it can be immediately obvious to any given employee exactly what the status of their training is. Similarly, we are also asking more of our supervisors and our line managers. We are asking them to take care that the people who work for them actually comply with the regulations so that we can do business with integrity. And again, by logging into the solution, a supervisor or line manager can get a one-stop shop view of the progress of the people for whom he is responsible. And so, and typically we provide a sort of a graphical user interface, that, or will provide a graphical user interface, that in CLIX 2013. So people can can drill down into their employees, for example, who are not completing their training as specified. So in our example groups, in our example clients, both of them, in this case, in the chasing case, in our sample clients, keep an eye on that. They both use a standard tracking functionality in order to see who had completed what. Okay, next process, chasing. Chasing is a process from a compliance perspective. Thanks. Chasing is a process from a compliance perspective which we'd really rather not have. I'm just a bit worried about that now. Ideally, people would complete their compliance training as specified by the due date. But sadly, the reality is that business pressures mean that that does not actually happen sometimes. And therefore, any solution needs to provide chasing capability and, where necessary, escalation capability. Our solution provides a chasing framework so that you can flexibly define chasing emails to be sent to the individual, to line managers and supervisors, to heads of compliance as required. Alternatively, you can just define the framework so it just goes to one set of employees. It will be dependent upon your own corporate culture as to how you decide to set up your compliance framework. I'm really sorry about this. I don't understand why it keeps going. So if we look at our examples, in the Mobilar example, their chasing program was, after 21 days, an email was sent to the individual employee. After 28 days, this is before this is 28 days from the actual start of the actual training course. 21 days to the employee, 28 days to the employee and their supervisor. After 42 days it went to the employee, the supervisor, and also to the head of compliance. So therefore there was an escalation model they had in place. In the case of the Swiss financial institution, it was actually very different. They decided that they wanted their employees only to receive these emails, and they had a series of 5 different alerts for them. And as a consequence, there was 3 emails which were to be sent prior to the training being completed, if they had not completed it themselves, and 2 post the end of the post the end date, should they have not have completed it. Now, you might think that actually sounds quite terrible, because typically you have people on a variety of courses, but never fear, there is only 1 email sent on a daily basis which aggregates all the courses that any given individual is on, so that people are not bombarded with hundreds of emails. Okay, so let's move on to the final piece, which is around reporting. As part of the tracking process, I've already discussed the capability of our dashboard capability, where individuals can just enter the system and see the status of any given course at any time. On top of that, we provide a full suite of compliance reports which enable organisations to provide relevant information to their senior stakeholders and to the authorities. So, in addition, because we have a huge amount of logging capability, sorry, I'll just ignore that, I'll carry on. So, in addition, because of our audit logging, we can provide very, very detailed reports on exactly what has happened in any compliance training. One of the things that authorities are very hot on is what changes were made to target groups, why were people excluded from training. So, for example, if someone all of a sudden goes on long-term sickness, you may want to manually take them from a target group because it may no longer be appropriate for them to take that particular piece of compliance training. And therefore, all these changes can be recorded in the system and fully reported on. So, in our sample clients, Mobilar in particular used the reports extensively. One of the prime reasons for them taking the solution was that they were wanted to have fully documented evidence of any changes to compliance training, and also to be able to document the status, progress, and what had actually happened on any piece that had been taken. Contrast that with our Swiss financial provider. They decided that they had all the information captured within the CLIX platform. However, their standard approach was to produce reporting through BI. This was their business warehouse suite. And we again worked with them to help them produce the reports they needed by ensuring that the data they required was fed into their BI solution. So, that's a summary of our compliance solution. Thank you very much for coming along today, and I do apologise about the slides, which seem to have a mind of their own. If you want to talk to me any further about compliance, please come and visit me on stand 2. We also have our compliance white paper available there, and I'm sure that IMC would be more than happy to serve any of your compliance needs. Thank you very much.